back to the Fearless Females Voice podcast, where women's stories and experiences are shared to empower and inspire others. Before we begin the podcast, I want you to check out my free Stuck to Success quiz, which will help you discover why you're stuck in your work, provide clarity on your next steps, and give you an immediate action plan. It takes less than 5 minutes to complete, and you can find it on my website, www.fearlessfemales.me. On this episode, I am joined by Bhavna, who is a successful entrepreneur with multiple award-winning businesses and has over 18 years of corporate and business experience. Bhavna has had a great entrepreneurial journey with ups and downs, and through her learnings and experiences, she now mentors other female entrepreneurs. She loves supporting other women and also has built a strong community with just over 4.7 thousand members. The community is a great place to be if you're looking to network, get support, and learn new things about business. On this episode, she said from the start that she has nothing to hide, and she openly shares her business journey and insights, her key challenges that she's faced, how she now helps women overcome blockers such as comparison syndrome and imposter syndrome, and her future plans within business. She is so passionate about supporting other female businesses and seeing women thrive, and this aligns so well with what Fearless Females is all about. I know you're going to love the listen, so without further ado, let's get stuck in. So Bhav, thank you so much for joining me on my podcast. It's amazing to have you here. We've been in touch briefly last year. I joined your Facebook group and I thought it was incredible, not only what you were doing, but the community that you've built of women in that group. And I felt so welcomed in, and I feel like I was learning a lot from that as well. And it was very inspiring. So thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. And I'll start with, what does being a fearless female mean to you?
Being a fearless female, I could say many, many things about it. But I think for me, it means being able to empower other women fearlessly, without any inhibitions, without any judgments. It's being able to just, let women be who they are. I think, fear comes from such a space of judgment and what other people are going to think of you. So being able to empower other women not to fall into the trap, I think that's, for me, is being a fearless female. It's just doing what you want to do, when you want to do, on your terms.
I love that. And I've got to say, just a bit of the behind the scenes for the listeners. Just before we started, I asked Bhav, I was like, I can, edit anything out. And she was like, no, I'm an open book. I'm happy to share all my experiences and it's absolutely fine. She's like, doesn't matter who judges me, if there's any judgment. And it just goes to show that that level of fearlessness is coming through already from you. So
I think judgment is a huge thing for women, isn't it? Like, you have it all through your life. And I think sometimes women are the worst enemies of other women, because you grow up from being in schools to, dating to, even after you're married. I think women tend to, sometimes have this, because you've been judged, you sometimes feel like you have to protect that space. So you don't open up to other women because you think you're going to be judged. And instead of just saying, it's okay, like, everyone has their opinions, and you're not going to like everybody you meet, and that's okay. And, it doesn't, like, I've got people that I work with that I have really great working relationships with, but I know I couldn't really be friends with them. And that's okay, because I'm not looking to build a friendship with them, but I work really well with them on business terms. So when we work and do business together, we're fantastic. But I know that their personality and mine would not mean that we would be best of friends, where, we could still have a great conversation. And I think it's recognizing those boundaries and recognizing that it's okay to have those kind of relationships. Not everybody you meet is going to suddenly become your best friend, right? So
absolutely. And I like the bit that you talked about, that everyone will have some form of an opinion. And this is something that I talk about as well. Judgment is everywhere. No matter what you do, whether it's a good thing, a bad thing, there's always going to be someone having an opinion on that. And it's just learning, as you said, to create the boundaries and pretty much just shutting that out and continuing on.
Yeah.
But I do recognize that it does block and stop a lot of women from moving forwards, because they're thinking, what's that person going to think? And
exactly. And I think I read, I have an ex-client who has become a really good friend, and she it's really funny. She posted something today that was so resonant and so many people have reposted it. It's about, she was a nutritionist, and she was talking about, it's not just toxic foods, but it's also toxic people that you need to remove from your life. Like when you're around someone who is toxic or negative, it actually affects your systems, like your digestive systems, and your body tenses up, and so all those things affect you. So it's not just food that you need to remove from your life. Like, look around you. What do you need to work on in your circle? And it was so apt, because I was like, you absolutely spot on, right? Because we all think of, oh, I'm not feeling well, I shouldn't eat this. Then you should. So what about the circle you're in? Like, look at that as well. But yeah, it's and it's lovely that you're in the community, because that is one thing. When we formed that community of successful superwomen, the ethos was always going to be to not just inspire, but form those relationships where I don't have to be present. It's not my community. I'll never call it my community. It's ours. So that all the women that are in there can, ask questions without feeling judged, who can, approach other business women and become, a collective. And so many collaborations have come out of it. It's fantastic. Like, and so many great friendships have formed. Like, people who live in the same area, they're like, I never knew you lived down that road. I have lived there for 10 years. And then they meet up for coffee, and now, they're out together pretty much every weekend, and they work together, and, they've become close friends. And that is what it's all about, right? Because at the end of the day, we have Facebook is covered in communities. It's got lots and lots of communities. And the last thing I wanted was somewhere where you came in and it was catty, or you can't do this, you can't do that. It was very much like, you're an adult, just treat this space as an adult. Don't spam it with stuff, and you'll be okay. And it's really helped it grow. And, it's got some wonderful people on that group. I mean, I've met some really incredible women in that group who have also become like really good friends that I call upon pretty much all the time. So it is a great space, and I'm so glad you're in it and that you find it useful.
Absolutely. And just for those listening, so Bhavna has a Facebook group called Successful Superwoman, and it's got over 4,000 members, or something like 4.3 thousand women. It's growing rapidly. And this is exactly what she's talking about. The space that she's created is very open. There's a lot of collaboration, a lot of learning. Women are just thriving in there. And as a business owner, it can be difficult to form that level of community, that level of openness. So I guess before we touch in that community, just to give a little bit of an intro as to who you are and what you do, because you've been in the corporate world, you're now running your business, and you've got years of experience in it. So let's get a bit of background into where it all began.
I'm born and brought up in Tanzania. I went to uni at Leeds. I met my now husband at Leeds Uni, but in between kind of finishing uni and getting married, I moved back to Tanzania. So I was here for about 3 years. And my background, my degree was in communications and law. I didn't want to do anything with law. It was just something that I was interested in. And I always thought I was going to I would end up in like a media related role, because I loved doing stuff. So I launched a newspaper in Tanzania, and then at the back of it got headhunted by a telecoms company to go and work with them in marketing. I'd never done any of that. And I'll tell you the truth, I never wanted to work in corporate. I was like, I'm not going to be a corporate monkey. I don't want to do any of that. Like, I'm going to have this, creative, like, media job, and I'm going to write these articles and go and do these incredible stories. And but it was an offer I couldn't refuse. And I thought, well, I'll try it. If I don't like it, I can go back to doing what I was doing. So I took on the job, and it was a maternity cover at the time. But the lady who went on maternity never came back. So I then got quickly promoted to head of marketing. And I did the whole rebrand for the telecoms company. It's still going. It's a really popular telecoms company still now in Tanzania. So I did some of that, and then kind of got married, moved back to England, worked in some pharmaceuticals for a while, and then worked at Reuters for just short of 4 years as an editorial manager. So a team of 7 writers, and we wrote for a lot of the government lobby stuff. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun. But I didn't have any children then. It was long commutes because I was in London 3 times a week, but I was also in Yorkshire the other time. Just really long days, But then they got taken over. Thomson got taken over. Reuters got taken over by Thomson. And they made a lot of stuff redundant, which included our whole department. So at that point, I just turned 30. And I said to my husband, I think it's time to do something different. And if I don't do it now, I'll don't. And that's this is the kind of maybe something you'll notice is every decade, like when we come on to the next chapter. So when I was 30, I was like, right, it's time to start a new business. And I didn't know anything about wedding photography, like nothing. I just loved photography, and I used a camera all the time. I thought, well, what's there to lose? So I invested the money in there. But whilst I invested in that business, I also invested in another business with a friend of mine. And it was a bridal boutique in Bradford, which is also still going. But it wasn't for me. So just to give people an idea of, you might think of someone's really successful and they've just done all these amazing things or whatever. But I've also done my fair share of things where things haven't worked out. So when I did that boutique thing, I went in thinking this is going to be fab. It's a great opportunity to build a business in Bradford where this is really is a thriving place. There's nothing like this. A year into it, and I absolutely hated it. I hated it completely. I was like, I'm here 7 days a week. I have no life. I was smaller than a size 0. My marriage was suffering. I started becoming a recluse because I was just so exhausted all the time, and I just did not like it at all. So it was kind of like, you choose that or you choose your marriage, and where do you go? So I just thought, no, this is not going where I wanted to go. So I stopped and then completely focused fully on the wedding photography business, invested in wedding fairs, started, getting my name out there. And by the end, the first year I started wedding photography, I had 1 wedding booked. And my husband said, are you going to be okay? I'm like, I don't know. I really don't know how this is going to go. And he's like, well, it's fine. We'll live on beans and toast. It's okay. This is what you want to do. Let's give it a shot. And I think that's also key, having a supportive partner, right? Having someone who's like, it's okay. If you fail, it's okay. It's just a lesson, right? And so we're like, right, okay. So by March, I still only had 1 booking. And the wedding fair in Bradford contacted me and said, would you like to come and have a stand, and we'll give you a reduced rate, and you're new, etc. And I went. I booked 5 weddings from that wedding fair. And by the end of that year, I'd done 20. So wow. It was a fantastic way, a huge learning curve, of course, but it was a great way to kind of go from 0 to kind of 100 in a way of being able to scale your business and knowing where you need more help, where you need to train yourself better, where, my logo was crap. It was I made it myself. My business at the time was called Upendo Images, and no one knew what it meant. And they just kept calling it Upend. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so bad. And my logo was made on a crazy app, and my whole website was made on Wix, and which is, Wix is a great app now, but it was just new then. And I was like, yeah, I can do this. And I thought it was all fancy. And, you think your website is the best. It wasn't. And, my editing style was different. Again, it was all a learning curve. And then about 2 years into the business, I rebranded. I knew where I wanted to go. I had a vision by then. I knew who my ideal clients were. I knew the kind of couples I was booking, who I wanted to book. And so I changed it to my name, because everyone would never refer me as Bhavna from Upendo Images. They'd be like, who is your photographer? Bhavna Barratt. So it just made complete sense just to have my name as my website and my business name. And that's then evolved. I've been doing that 11 years now.
Wow.
And I've, it's won awards. I've grown a team. I have a fantastic team of 4 people, so it's got to a point now where I can leave the country and know that there's still work there that is going to get done by my team. And people trust me to do that. And I think that's the key here. Like, is if you're a sole trader, sometimes you get trapped and you think, well, I can only do so much. But the key is to let go and believe in other people and say, it's okay. Like, I can't like divide myself into these 5 weddings. But if you want to grow your business in income, then you've got to take on other people, and you've got to pay them well, and you've got to treat them well and trust them to do the job. And that's what's happened. So over the last 3 years, that's grown really like, rapidly. Obviously, we had Corona, so that we had no weddings. Again, that was a great learning curve, because in a business, that's like a do or die situation, like, what are you going to do at that point? You can either carry on or you're going to close down. And I know so many businesses that close down, but we were lucky because we'd built our business over the last, at that point, like 8 years or so, on such a great cycle of income and expenditure that it kept us going for those months without, completely feeling like, right, we're going to have to close down. And our clients, we built the relationships with them where they weren't just pulling out. They were like, it's okay, we trust you with our deposits, and we've changed our dates, and it's okay. So it takes a long time to build that kind of brand, if that makes sense. So here we are, we've done all of that. And in between all that, I had the wild idea to start a community. So my husband's like, you're not doing enough. You want to do something else. So I launched Successful Superwoman 4 years ago. And that was just after I think it was 18 months after I had my son. And as a South Asian woman, it was quite, like, where I live as well, it's quite lonely. And I felt like I wanted other people to work with, like, even if it was virtual. But also I felt like I had to, it was just like this thing in me that I felt like I had to do something to help women who've been in my position. Like, so when I was made redundant and I started the photography business, that whole year, I didn't have anyone to tell me where I was going wrong or what I could do better, right? Or where I could learn certain things from. I had to teach myself everything. And I feel like that can be a hindrance for a lot of people. Like, if you're starting out new and you have all these hurdles, it's easy to say, sorry, I'm not doing it. It's too much work. But if you have someone saying to you, actually use this app or get a VA or, what do you call it? When you schedule everything, so get an app and you do all these things, it will save you time. You don't do that. And also now, like, from when we started to now, social media is a very different place. And so the call for community, and as you'll know it, like, you're really active on social media, you have to keep at it, right? And you have to communicate with people all the time. And I just thought with a community, it makes it a little bit easier, because I have people on there who need help, but who are too afraid to ask for it, or too shy to ask for it, or feel intimidated or have imposter syndrome. The group allows them to message people privately or connect with other like-minded people and do those things. We had every year we do like a Go Live challenge. We have one coming up in the group this month, and that Go Live challenge, for example, we had a girl in the group who is now a very successful personal trainer, who had never gone live, never. And she refused to go live. She's like, no, I cannot show my face, nothing. With the Go Live challenge, and said, look, just do it. Like, no one's going to judge you. Just go live for a minute. That's all you've got to do. Just go for a minute, talk about yourself and what you do. And she did it. And then she did it the next day, and she did the whole challenge. And 8 months later, launched her personal training program. And now her personal training programs are all sold out. So it's like she's gone from not being live to being live in front of people all the time. And I think that's the power of a community. You can do that if you build a community that you give to unconditionally. And they do it between themselves. Like, the admins do it. The admins just go on there and they'll talk about how crap a day they're having, or how they're not doing so well in their businesses. And I think that's the key. It's not everyone shouting about, look how much money I'm making. It's people being real and saying, well, actually, I made money, but I lost money. And this is what I learned. So I launched that 4 years ago, and then launched a membership through that. And so we have different programs and stuff. But more than anything, it's been, even for me, a safe space. So, whenever I've been through a difficult time, I've been able to go on there. I used to go on there when I had my second son, like 11 o'clock at night, because I was breastfeeding and I was on my own and I was like, there's nobody here to talk to. So I'd go live and I'd just talk to them. I'd had baby in the boob and I'm talking to them. And that's, I mean, those videos are probably still there. But it also brings up conversation and discussion. It opens up people saying, oh, I'm so glad you're still breastfeeding a child, because I've been made to feel like you can't breastfeed past the age of 6 months, or, or you have to cover your child, or you have to do this. And it opens up all these discussions around womanhood and what it means, not just to be an entrepreneur, but to be a woman and feel, empowered and not be judged, as we talked about. So it's been a great journey so far. Hopefully the next couple of years, what we've got planned will allow those women that are in the community to grow even further.
I love that. What a story. And just to clarify, so when you were doing your photography business, that was full time, right?
Yes.
You were in it full time. So what I find now is, especially probably over the last 2 years since the pandemic, is a lot of people have gone into starting a business, and many people who I speak to worry about the saturated market. So they might look into something and be like, oh, that's really saturated. Oh, that's really, for example, there's loads of coaches, there's loads of fitness coaches, there's loads of photographers, there's loads of different products that are being sold, which are very similar. So when you started your photography business, I know you said you built it on a passion of yours, but what were some of your blockers, if any? Did you think about the saturation, especially for wedding photography?
So at the time I started, actually, there was very few women photographers. So that was kind of a niche for me, but the market was definitely saturated. We had a lot of male, because I was focusing on South Asian weddings as well. And there was a huge market, especially down south, that had kind of taken over that area. And there was a couple of male photographers in the Yorkshire area where I was as well. But what I found was perseverance, and like just basically saying there's only one me. Like my style was very different. My approach was very different. So what allowed me to break through was that difference in what made me me. I'm not there to compare, but it happens. The first 2 years you compare yourself to everybody, because I had all these photographers on my list. I had these people on Instagram that I followed, all these like world famous photographers, and we all do that even with coaching. I'm sure, like when you're a coach, you follow all these amazing coaches, and you're like, wow, they're making millions, and like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I must be really crap or something. And you do that as a photographer and as a coach. So I was like, one day I went to a workshop with a brilliant photographer called Fer Yoristi, and he's like an incredible Mexican photographer. And he said, don't believe everything you see. And he said, what you see on my website is what I want to show people, is what the clients I want to attract. But what I do is for my family. This business that I run is for my family. I have 3 kids, a wife, and I want to look after them because I want to be that person that provides for them. And in Mexico, things are not as expensive as other parts of the world. So I can charge an X amount of price for my photography when I'm doing destination weddings. And I command that price and I get it. And he gets it because of what he shows and what he delivers. But he said, if tomorrow my situation changed and I had to show the things that I don't show, for example, he doesn't take photos of like details like the dress hanging or the jewelry or the makeup being applied, right? But he said, if tomorrow my situation changed and those are the clients I needed to attract, that's what I would show. Because at the end of the day, it's no one else's business. It's my business. So what other people think of my business doesn't matter to me, because how I want to run it is up to me. And that has stayed with me for the last I saw him about my third year into business, just whilst I was rebranding actually. And it stayed with me. And so I actually went on Instagram and unfollowed a load of photographers, because I thought they're my client. All I'm doing is upsetting myself thinking, I'm never going to be like that. But I don't want to be like that. And that is not my style. So what I need to do is focus on my style and what I want and how, and the kind of service I want to provide. And that actually was a light bulb moment, because as soon as I did that, oh my God, Chandni, it was like my business just thrived, because I no longer believed in anybody else's hype, but I hyped myself up. So I was like, I'm pretty good at what I do. I take great photos. I'm a great, I provide a great service. I do everything that I want to do in the way I would want to be treated. So that's that. If I don't win awards, I don't care. Like, I'm not doing this to win awards. I'm doing it because A, I love doing it. B, I love giving people the memories they want. And C, because it gives me a decent wage, right? So that's, at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. And it's the same in a lot of industries, right? So my analogy for this to my clients and to a lot of people is, when you go down to a supermarket, how many different brands of tea and coffee do you see?
Loads.
And they're right next to each other.
Yeah.
They're right next to each other, but they're all still there. And we all choose one. So we all have a different taste, and we all choose one. So we'll either go with this brand or that brand, or, for whether it's the price or the packaging or the flavor, right? Or the, wherever it comes from, whatever it is. So when it comes to your own business, think of it like that. You could be 10 hairdressers next to each other, but you'll all have your own type of clients that come to you. Maybe one does a better blow dry than the other. Maybe one uses a better shampoo than the other. Maybe one's manicure is better than the other. So there's always going to be a market for you. It's never think of it as, oh, there's too many of that. In fact, if there's too many people doing it, it means there is a demand for it. So people want that service, and maybe there's a market for it because people aren't doing it right, or maybe they haven't found the right kind of person for it. So I think one of the biggest blocks, like you said, was that imposter syndrome of, I'm not going to be as good as this person. I'm never going to be this big, or, and I think that's the key. That's the biggest one that we all face, that it's too saturated. I'm not good enough. But actually take that layer off of, that person might have spent 10 years building that business, or that person might have a very different financial situation than yours. Maybe they had an inheritance and they invested a lot of money to get to where they are, So never, just, what are your own grass? What are your own grass? Focus on that lane and just say, you know what, I've got this right. And where I'm lacking, I'm going to get help. And I think that's the key. Biggest advice I'll give people is just stay on your own lane. Don't look at what your next door neighbor is doing. Clearly, if their grass is greener, they're watering it more. You just need to stop looking at theirs and water yours more. So you'll be fine.
I completely agree with that. And comparison syndrome is something that I say comparison syndrome, but comparison is something that I've also experienced probably when I started my business. And it just goes to show, because when something is working for someone, I feel like that's not the solution for everyone. No, so absolutely. Something, it might be, I don't know, videos or certain pictures or whatever. And it's almost like that person, wow, they're doing great. But then actually that might not be you. You might not be as good in that area, but yet people may want to jump on that bandwagon. And it's almost finding what works for you, just as you said. And
did you find the whole TikTok trend a bit, for me, I'm like, and this is going to sound really, I'm not old, I'm 40, right? I'm not that old. But I have a young sister, and she's great with reels, and she's great with TikTok and all these, these videos and stuff. And I am I'm really tech savvy, but I just can't get into that role play. I'm just I can't be in that zone. I have to really
take energy,
prep myself up for it. And my social media manager was going to me, Bhavna, I need some reels from you. And I'm like, oh my God, can you just not do, I don't know, just whatever. And she's like, no, I need reels. And I'm like, okay. And I have to really hype myself up to do these reels. But again, you don't have to do them, right? It's not something
exactly.
I think every time something new comes out, you're like, oh, I must do this. It's like every time a new iPhone comes out, it's like, I must get the new iPhone. Actually, it does the same job, right? It's going to make a call. It's going to let you go on social media. It's just a new number. But you still want to do it. People still want to get on that bandwagon. And I think it's really hard for some people actually to not go on to that, because they feel like they just need to do everything. And you'll know, as a coach, that we get clients who are like, oh, I want to do this on Instagram and this on Facebook and this on TikTok and this on here and this. And you're like, hang on, you can't do everything. You've got to focus on an area. Where is your client? Are they on Instagram? Or are they on Facebook? Where if you're spreading yourself thin everywhere, who's going to find you? Nobody. but like go where they are, be yourself. You know, everyone talks about authenticity a lot, right? And I'm like, just be your real self, turn up, like, yeah, just do your thing. Don't worry about being present on TikTok if you don't want to be, like, you know, and it takes up a lot of time.
Oh, I was gonna say, you can do it, but if you've got a team, like, it's doable by yourself. You're trying to cover all of these different platforms, all of these different audiences. You're right in saying, where is your audience? For me, I focus on the ones. I know I didn't quite go on the TikTok trend, but when you were talking, it just reminded me of the other app, and I cannot remember the name of it right now. It's the one where everyone just talks and they go in
Clubhouse.
forums.
Clubhouse.
Thank you. So yes, Clubhouse. So this was a thing, and I had so many of my friends saying to me, Clubhouse, it's going to be the next big thing. Get on it. And I'm just thinking, it's not for me. I'd rather do a podcast, record it, get it out. Like, I have other things that I'd prefer to do than that. Yeah. And I had, like, honestly, a message a day, get on Clubhouse, let me invite you, blah, blah. And I'm just like, I just don't want to go on it.
I went on Clubhouse. I was in Tanzania at that time as well. And I joined it, and I really enjoyed having conversations with people that I didn't know at all. And a lot of those people were in Australia and America, wedding planners, and, there were lots of groups that popped up for like South Asian women and talking about the cultural barriers and stuff. So I joined the conversations and the discussions, and I probably made like 10 people who I still connect with outside of Clubhouse, who really left an impression, and vice versa. Like, we have collaborated on certain things, we've spoken, we might email each other, but none of us go on Clubhouse anymore.
I feel like it died off. I eventually, the text stopped and everyone's like, oh, we're not using it anymore. Okay.
It's still there, but I think, again, that's the thing again, like, how many things are you going to dabble in? Like, how many things
absolutely.
are you going to keep track of? And I have 2 boys. I have 2 young boys who keep me very busy, and I'm like, I'm trying to do bedtime. I can't get on Clubhouse. Like, I've got a screaming child. I know all you're going to hear is a screaming child, and I can mute myself, but what's the point? Like, I can't participate. So it got to a point where I was like, this isn't for me. And, it's, I'm not losing anything by not being on it, or gaining anything by being on it as such. So I left about 3 months in. I was like, this isn't for me. But I know some people that did really well from it, who managed to get onto like big stages, but they were on it all the time. It was like, too much. I can't do that. I have a life.
Yeah. And I was thinking the same. Like, and also the fact that nothing's recorded, nothing's really set in stone. It's almost just, you're on it and then it goes. And I don't know, it just didn't sit well with me. So I was like, I'll give that one a miss. But you mentioned about being authentic. Okay, so the authentic thing comes up a lot, and I have personally experienced it myself, because behind the scenes, like, for me, family and friends is everything. It's something that I don't show much of on my platform. Same for behind the scenes here. Like, I'm always dancing around and just silly. And it's something that I'm always like, oh my God, do I want to show this side? Like, and that's who I am. But because I've worked in the corporate world, I'm also very professional in that area as well with work. And I really struggle with getting the balance. I think I'm not in the corporate world anymore. And I just want to be more me, which is what I'm trying to do more of now. But also, we talked about the judgment piece, and I feel it links really nicely with being authentic, showing your true self, and thinking, oh my God, what is that person going to think if I am dancing along whilst I'm putting the laundry out, whatever it is. And that might be you, but at the same time, you may be thinking, oh my God, what is someone going to say about that? So how did
that is a great question, because I'll be very honest, I deal with that up to now, like even now, like even having been live so many times, showing up so many times, even I still get that, because when, like with all this real stuff, I'm getting told, you need to do this reel, it will really suit your personality, and you've got to do all these things. And I'm like, people are just going to think I'm an idiot. Like, what are they going to think? Like, and I have to bring it back to myself going, does it matter? Okay, no, it doesn't matter. Then just do it. And I think it is very hard if you don't work on your mindset, that you are going to constantly feel judged. Like, you could just be going live like right now and thinking, oh, what is she thinking about me? Or have I said something wrong? And it's a constant, because it's a mindset thing. And I think you've got to kind of almost say to yourself, it's okay, I can be silly because this is who I am. Like, if I want to jump, then I'll jump. If I want to like make funny faces, I'll make funny faces. There's a lady, an Indian lady or Pakistani lady, I think she's a plus size, and she's a doctor, and she does a lot of dancing, and she went viral. She went from like 0 to like, I think 60K likes on Instagram. Her name's Dr. Nafia Khan or something like that. And I started following her. And the reason I started following her is because she doesn't care. She's like, you can troll me all you like. I love dancing. I know I'm a plus size. It doesn't bother me. Like, if it bothers you, like, leave my page while you're here. I love doing it, and I'm here. And if it helps other people feel like it's comfortable to do it, then great. And she, like, honestly, I even showed that to some of my clients who feel like I can't show up because I wear a hijab, and, like, I never used to wear it before, and people might judge me. And I'm like, nobody cares. It's all in your head. Like, in your head, you have formed this thing, this story, that if I show up this way, people are going to think this of me. But actually, if you change the narrative and say, people don't know this side of me, they might really like it, then you're going in with a positive spin, because then you're like, right, this is who I'm going to be, And I find that whenever I show up as me, which is what I normally do, I don't tend to have a lot of makeup. I don't tend to really I just come up. I get more people viewing me, and I get more people following me, because you resonate with them. They're like, oh my God, this person is just as crazy as me, or this person is talking like me, or they sound like me, or they have the same issues as me, So like, as a mom, I get it a lot. They're like, we don't know how you do it. Like, you've got kids and you're running this and you're running that, but we completely resonate with how you feel. Like, it's draining and it's exhausting, and you're like running around, and it connects people. And I think that's I think we have to remove the judgment. Like, we just need to put it away, like, bury it somewhere. And I'm not saying it's easy, because, like I said, I still get it even to this day, where I feel like people are going to think I'm some nutter. But yeah, I think also as a coach, when you start coaching, that is quite a weird industry. And I think it makes you feel more vulnerable, because you're being so open about things that you think people are going to just think you're just saying stuff, or for the sake of saying stuff. And I think that is something that I was like, well, if I tell them the story, then they'll understand that I'm not just saying it. And I think that really helped put things into perspective for me. I'm like, this is a real life example of what just happened. Yes. And so they're like, okay, well, that makes sense, But yeah, it's tough. It is really tough. And when you a startup, it's the worst.
It takes time, right? I think for me, it just takes time, and it will come, because the more you do it, the more confident you become, and it will just become a lot easier as well.
Yeah, 100%.
And I know you are open with your audience, because I came across one of your posts, I think back last year, when we were having a chat as well, a bit of a back and forth conversation. You're very open with the challenges that you face, whether it's in your business, your personal life, and as a part of the Facebook group, you do openly share. And I connected with you when I watched the video, I connected with you. And as an entrepreneur, even a career woman, there's always going to be downs. There's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be times when you're just sad, you want to stop, you want to quit, all these kind of things. So what have been some of your biggest challenges throughout your business?
There's been plenty. I mean, when you're a startup all the way until you've got a successful business, they all have challenges. Never think that just because your business is successful that it doesn't have challenges. You'll constantly have something new that comes up that you need to work on. And that life that you talk about, that I was quite a low point at that point in my life. I was very lonely. I literally was thinking about ending my life. Just those thoughts that come into your head, and I would never do it. Like, I know I'm quite a strong person, but those thoughts just kept coming in my mind because I was so exhausted. I was spreading myself everywhere. I was doing everything, being a mom, being a wife, being an entrepreneur, running a community, and running a household, being a daughter. My dad's quite poorly. My dad's on dialysis. So like all those things were just weighing on my mind, and I was constantly trying to show up and be positive for everybody else. And I just thought, I can't carry on like this. It's just not. I'm going to do something to myself. I'm going to just walk in front of this train. And part of it was like postpartum. Part of it was loneliness. Part of it was exhaustion. So a combination of it all. And I think even though I knew the signs, even though I knew where that was leading, I still carried on. And I think that's the worst thing you can do. And in terms of challenges, like, when you're an entrepreneur, being lonely is quite a challenge, because if you work, for yourself and you're working from home, you can go to numerous cafes and stuff, but you're still working on your own. And you have to face all the challenges of being the CEO, the CFO, the CMO, and everything. And then if you're married, or if you're not married, you still have household duties or parental duties or whatever duties to carry out. And then you have a social life to show up to. And there are days when you're like, I'm so exhausted, I just want to veg out in front of the TV and watch rubbish television. But you feel obliged to go out and meet with those friends that you haven't seen for 2 weeks because you've been busy working at home. So all these things, they pull you at different sides. You feel like you should be doing something, at the same time as growing a business. But honestly, you don't. Your friends will actually understand if you tell them, look, I'm trying to grow a business. I'm working from home. I'm really stressed out. Do you want to come to see me instead of me coming to see you? And I'll just shut my computer and we'll just sit and just take a pizza or have a takeout or whatever and watch rubbish television. It's okay to say that. I didn't do that, especially the first few years of my business life. But as my business grew, the more and more, especially after having kids, I was like, I'm sorry, I can't come out. Why don't you come to mine instead? Because you can bring your kids, they can play, and we can have a coffee, and I'll shut my laptop off and we can have a breather. And that comes with experience. It comes with recognizing that you can do those things, and you don't have to ask permission. You don't have to feel obliged to go out with your friends. They should understand as well. But you need to vocalize it, because what happens is a lot of people, when you start a business, they become a recluse. They're like, oh, I have so much to do, and you don't understand. I'm trying to start a new business. Your friends understand that you're trying to start a new business. What they don't understand is why you're not communicating with them. So if you communicate with them, like in any business, even if you had a successful business, you'd be communicating with your clients, right? Be saying, I'm not available this week, but next week I'm available on these days, right? So you have to see that if you tell your friends, guys, this week I have all these incredible meetings, I can't wait to tell you about it. Can we meet next week? They're not going to be like, oh, she's some big shot now, she doesn't want to see us. Again, that's a judgment thing. That's what you are thinking in your head. My friends are going to think I'm this horrible person. What your friends will say is, that's great, we can't wait to hear about it. Let's sit down. And I think that's where the challenge comes. And I think especially for women, we are almost customized to thinking a certain way our entire life. Like you're going to, get married, you're going to have a house to look after, you're going to have a husband to look after, and it's all look after. But who looks after you? Who looks after you? And, how are you feeling? And so there's a lot of talk about self-care and all this now. It's a trending term nowadays. But actually, self-care is nothing more than just looking after yourself in the best possible way, whether you're eating better, sleeping better.
Whatever it means to you, right?
Yeah, whatever.
Absolutely.
Whatever it is. It could be having a glass of wine in the bath.
Yeah.
And that's all you need to just kind of have a breather, And I think that's the other thing was I wasn't looking after myself. So I was working constantly going. And so I changed that. I was like, I'm not, so I stopped working on Fridays. I was like, I am not working Fridays. Like they are my day off. I'm going to spend them doing whatever I want. So go for a coffee, go for a walk, read a book, have a bath, whatever I want to do, that I'm going to have that on Friday. So I don't work Fridays. And then apart from if it's a wedding, then I'm working on a Friday. But in terms of like coaching and stuff, I don't take clients on a Friday. But with the business is becoming successful, then the challenge is managing it where you're providing the best service. Like your time becomes really expensive because you're like, okay, I have all these schedules to manage, but where do I need to be? That's important. So time blocking became really important to me, but that's just over the last couple of years, it became more and more a part of my life. So I talk a lot about that because I think it's important. what happens is, as you're growing your business, you're only focusing on the growth. So you're like, oh, my business is growing, I'm making money, it's really successful. And everything else that you need to build to sustain that growth goes out the window, because you're not focusing on what you need, what the tools you need for the growth. What you're focusing on is just the growth. And then you get to a certain level and you're like, oh, how do I get an accountant that knows about VAT? Or, oh, I need to get some staff. Or, oh, my social media is not doing very well. Because what you focused on is just how much money you're making, as opposed to, great, I'm in the growth path. Now what I need to do is have a VA, have a social media manager, have an accountant who understands my business growth, have a strategy of where this growth is going. So if you do all that, then obviously your business will grow further. But otherwise, it'll go to a point where you're like, oh, it's gone stagnant. Of course it's gone stagnant, because you're just focusing on a specific thing as opposed to how your business can grow. So that's another challenge, like losing focus of the actual end goal. Like if you just want to make 50K a year, fine, you make 50K and then you stop, you don't do anything else. But if you want your organization or your brand to grow and create that legacy that you want, then every time you reach the initial mark, you go further and you go further and you go further. But each of those milestones, so you go from 50 to 100, 100 to 150, each of those milestones requires a different strategy and a complete mindset reset. Because when you go from 50K to 100K, you need to be ready for that. You need to be ready to accept that you're going into that kind of money. Because people sometimes they're not ready. They're not ready to make that kind of money. They want to make money, but they're like, oh my God, what am I going to do with all this money? Like, what do I do with it now? Like, and some of them will be like, oh my God, that means I've got to pay a lot of tax. I'm like, yeah, but paying tax is good, right? Because it means you're making money. Like, it's not a bad thing. So for me, they're like the key challenges, like being on your own, like feeling lonely, like not looking after yourself, and not strategizing your growth. Like, I think those are the important elements to look into a business, and not forget about yourself. I think looking after yourself is the key.
That's a foundation for me.
It's the key.
I feel like even when it comes to growth, whether you're going from 0 to 50, as you said, it's the foundation for every single step. And it will help you prevent burnout. It will help you create boundaries from the beginning, so you know how to manage it. It will help you understand what's working for you, what you need as your downtime, what hours you want to work. And I feel more and more businesses starting up are starting to think about these things, because they're becoming more visible, the foundation. So that's also a nice thing that I'm seeing right now.
It's also you'll see a lot of like multi corporate organizations, like multinationals, like Google or Facebook or where and other organizations in England, I'm sure they do as well, who now have self-care included in their workplace.
Yes,
and in
health and wellness. Yes.
Because you recognize as an employer that your staff are working for you all the time. They're in front of a computer, or they are in meetings or whatever. Like, give something back, like a yoga session or a breathwork session, or just being able to take 30 minutes out to read a book in a reading nook, or whatever it is, or go and play some ping pong, whatever it is, all these things really improve productivity. So, like that whole burnout thing you just talked about, like burnout is so real. Like, I've had it a few times. And that is where I was at when I did that live. I was like, this is, I want no one to experience this. It's awful. But learning to manage your workload and having that work-life balance to avoid the burnout, it takes time, and it comes with experience, and it comes with, as your business grows and you mature yourself, you soon realize that actually, just because I want my business to be successful doesn't mean I need to suffer. It means that I need to be a better person in good health so I can give more to my business, and I think that just comes with time. In the first year, you're just going to be on the go. No one's going to be, if you're a startup and someone tells you, take a break, like take a day off, you're going to be like, are you kidding me? Like, no. But you get to 10 years and they're like, oh, you can take a day off. I'm like, yeah, I already take a day off.
You're there.
And that's the difference. It comes with time, So persevere. Like, anyone listening that's a startup, persevere. Like, if you're looking at someone else and going, oh, I really like that makeup artist. She's doing so well, and look, she's not working so much, or I never see her doing this, that. Don't compare. Just think of how she got there. Persevere. Like, she's not just got there by click of the fingers, right? She's also done similar steps to you, learned the trade, got the clients, worked really hard, and now she's got to a point where she doesn't need to work every single weekend. Maybe she just does one client a week or one client a month, whatever it is, And you can aspire to these other women that you see. You can absolutely aspire to be like them. But don't be like, how's she done that? And actually,
absolutely,
I'm the kind of person who'll say, if you want to learn, ask them. The worst case scenario is they're going to say, I don't want to tell you how I did it. But actually, a lot of times women will say, if you came to me and say, how did you do that? I'm like, well, this is what I did. And they're like, oh, okay. And they might do it, they might follow through, or they might be like, that's not my thing. I'm not going to do it that way, So, if they go off and do the same thing as you, like I had a girl that came to me and said, oh, I've just done this course, and I was in this course with this other girl, and I've just realized she's doing the same thing I wanted to do. And I'm like, why are you worrying? Don't worry about it. You could have the same course written down, 2 different people delivering it, and different audiences will come to them. Like, you both have your different, you might attract a clientele that's completely different to hers. And as much as you condone people doing that, at the same time, I'm like, nobody can be you. So like, if that's the course you had in mind that you want to launch the course. Like, people who know you will come to you and deliver it in the most incredible way, so that the next time you launch it, and everybody else comes to you as well. Like, there's no need to feel like, or just because she launched it, I can't launch it, or she's doing the same thing as me, so I can't do that. There's enough for everybody. I mean, honestly, there is enough for everybody. And it's the key thing that if you listen to Denise DeFille Thomas, and she, on her podcast, in her books, she talks about money mindset, and she talks about abundance in a way where you say there's always more money. There's always more money. Money will come. And this is key when it comes to clients. There's always more clients. Clients will come. Don't compare yourself to this person's doing that, this person's doing that. Just kind of, just launch it, just do it, and just focus on launching it, and just focus on doing it. I feel like I'm going off tangent now. So
it's good. There's such good nuggets of information here. The advice, the tips, your experiences, everything. I'm just soaking it in. It's really great.
Yeah, it's really
great.
I think it's just, I think in the day and age we're in right now, everything is online. And so you're going to see more and more information in front of you all the time. I'm of the generation where we never had mobile phones when we were growing up. We didn't have the internet until, we were much older. And you kind of think, if only I knew how to use the social media right at the beginning, I could have been this expert, right? I could have been doing X, Y, Z. But that's not what I wanted to do. So I never did it, right? You're like, I don't want to do that. But I think it's important to recognize that you need to stop when you need to stop. Like, you need to take that breather and take that break and not have burnout.
Yeah, I think that's the one key thing that every business owner in general, even any person in general, should avoid. And it's good that you recognized it, even though you continued on, but you recognized it, and I'm sure you're getting better at it now. So and you mentioned before that you've got a lot going on, lots happening this year. I'd love to know, what is next for you?
Oh, so our lots of exciting things. Like, so we're relaunching the membership hub next month. So we've got a brand new membership page, brand new website, brand new membership, back end of the website and everything opening up. So we're really focusing on that at the moment. We've got some challenges coming up in the group as well. But we've also, I've also moved the business, so it's global. So I've now kind of moved to Tanzania, and hence you can see my sweaty face. But between myself and the admins, had a long chat, and this is why the admins came in as well, because we wanted to train them enough to take it all on in case I wasn't able to go live, which the last 3 months have been really difficult because I had a really crazy business, wedding photography business that took off in those months, obviously with all the postponements. And then it finished in October. I came to Tanzania in November. My sister got married in December. And so January is like now, we're just settling back into things and back in the office. But here, what we're doing is we're trying to introduce an EMEA approach. So we want to be able to do conferences in Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And so we want to take successful superwomen onto those levels where we're bringing in women from the different diasporas, because those are the diasporas which I think are the most underrepresented for South Asian women, right? Yeah. So you see a lot of Indian women or Pakistani women, but you don't see a lot of Indian women from Africa or Indian women from parts of Europe or parts of, Middle East, for example, represented in the same way. So we want to start doing things globally with some partners that we're working with. And so it's going to be a really diverse, hopefully, diverse environment going forward, where we open up the doors to women around the globe. At the moment, we have maybe, let's say, 10% of women in the group that are from different parts of the world. We have Australians, we have New Zealanders, we have Canadians, we have Austrians, Swedish women. We have like quite a diverse group at the moment, but we want to open it up even more. So the idea is to network in those areas and grow the group in those directions. Opens up opportunities for everybody in the group as well, because you now have women that you can speak to across the globe. So lots of those things happening.
Wow.
But the main thing obviously is the relocation and just setting up successful superwomen from here. So we still have our brunches going on. We have a brunch, I think, this week happening in Northwood. We're going to have brunches in Manchester. We're going to have networking events that are going on. And then I'll be back in the UK in June. So between June and August, we'll be having some in-person meetups and hopefully a conference that we're looking at putting out. So loads of things happening.
Sounds amazing. I'm looking forward to getting involved and seeing all these things happen. It sounds amazing.
I would love for you to be involved. I'd love for you to come and talk to the members and the group. I think the women would absolutely love having you there as well. You've got so much passion and got such a nice aura about you as well. I think they would really love having you there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was talking, I'm happy to come to the in-person events. I'm literally craving to meet a bunch of female entrepreneurs. You said it's lonely or you work on your own. I know the feeling, and it's something I'm not so used to. And I know you've been doing it for way longer than I have. So I'm just like, I really want an in-person event. So I'll be looking out for all of those.
Where are you based, Chandni?
Ealing Broadway, West London.
Yeah, so we have some in West London run by with her on our group.
I have to check that out. I have to check that out and get in touch as well, because it'd be really good to meet some of the members. So
I think you'd love the gatherings. Great person for them to listen to as well. So I think it will be good. Definitely. Yeah.
So to wrap up, Bav, how can people find you? How can the listeners find you?
Multiple ways. They can find me through the main group, which is Successful Women on Facebook. They feel free to DM me if they want to DM me. My inbox is always open. They can find me on Instagram on Successful Superwomen, or they can follow me on my photography page, which is Bhavna Pandya-Barratt, whichever. I'm accessible at most points. And then we have our website, which is relaunching next month, and it's called successfulsuperwoman.com, which is still live now, but it's going to be looking very different when it launches next month.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast, being open, sharing your experiences and also tips and little advice for everyone listening. It's been such a pleasure, so thank you.
Oh, thank you, Chandni, for having me. It's been a great day. Just talking to you about everything has been fab. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Fearless Females Voice podcast. Don't forget, I have a free quiz for you which will help you discover how fearless you are. It identifies where you're being held back in life and will give you some tips at the end on how to improve your mindset and confidence so you are living your best life. You can take the free quiz on my website, www.fearlessfemales.me. Also, I'd love for you to do me a massive favor. If you enjoyed the podcast, then be sure to leave a 5-star review on iTunes. Thank you.